So it's a tough week all around for the NFC South as the division as a whole finished 1-3 in their games this week. Of course, the Saints got their W, but the rest of the teams fell in close, heartbreaking games. So in this video, we're going to recap all 4 games and give you my takeaways from each of the games. We're starting right now. What up, dude? What's up, everybody? It's Aaron Duncan here at the Necessary Blunt Sports Talk. This is the channel where I might not tell you what you want to hear, but I'm definitely going to tell you what you need to hear. And here I give recap and analysis of the best division in the NFL, the NFC South. So if you guys want to see more videos about the Saints, the Bucs, the Panthers, or the Falcons, make sure you hit the subscribe button below, guys. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up and hit the bell icon. That way you don't miss a single thing that gets posted on the channel from the live streams to whenever a new video drops. So, of course, let's go ahead and start with the Bucs versus the Giants game. This game ended up being a pretty high-scoring game, but the Bucs ended up falling by a field goal. Ryan Fitzpatrick struggled is a light way to put it. However, Jameis Winston came back in, and tell me if you heard this before, but Jameis Winston replaces Ryan Fitzpatrick in the second half. And Jameis actually led the team to 4 touchdown drives and almost let them down. They had a chance with the ball in hands. Unfortunately, Jameis turned it over at the end, kind of in a desperation interception. However, the quarterback controversy continues on. This is just another chapter in the books for Dirk Koetter. I don't know if anybody's ever said it, but it's clear to me that the Bucs just simply need to run a 2-quarterback system, because obviously the only time that the quarterback plays well is when he's in mop-up duty. So if they just play one in the first half, the other one in the second half, maybe they'll be able to get a good mix of something, because the second half quarterback, whoever it is, whether it's Fitzpatrick coming in for Jameis or Jameis coming in for Fitzpatrick, they always tend to rally the team from the Bengals game to this game today. Yeah, granted, I understand that I'm not being 100% serious, because we all remember what happened in the Buccaneers game, even though Jameis Winston really didn't get a good amount of playing time, and he was coming just off suspension. However, it just seems like this is a recipe for disaster. This is not college. This is the NFL game. When the team doesn't know who they need to rally behind and game plan with every week, it kind of get dicey. I know Koetter's in a desperation position right now because his job is on the line as they fell to 3-7. However, he's just trying to make chicken salad out of chicken shit at this point, because the team is a disaster at this point. The defense is still bad, and the offense is inconsistent, and they keep turning the ball over. Although they put up points and accumulate yards, and they have the talent, they just can't seem to put it all together. And the Bucs seems to stop, no pun intended, with the head coach. So going forward, we'll see what happens with Dirk Koetter. He seems to be a dead man walking. I get that feeling about him right now, because these moves switch back and forth between quarterbacks is desperation. But I think it's grossly needed as. You got to figure out what you got with Jameis at this point. It's pretty much a guarantee that you're not going to be very good. You're not going to compete for the division, and you're pretty much out of the playoff race. So you might as well plan for the future, and you need to figure out if Jameis Winston is that future. So let's go ahead and get into the Falcons versus the Cowboys game. And I kind of already had a feeling about how this game would go. However, I did pick the Falcons to win because I thought that their offense would be too explosive for the Cowboys to keep up. I didn't think Dak Prescott would be able to make enough throws and make plays. However, after what happened with Ezekiel Elliott last week when he finally got going, and the way that Nick Chubb ran all over the Atlanta Falcons, you knew it was going to be a steady dose of Zeke all day. And that's exactly what happened. But the most disappointing thing is some of the coaching decisions in the game by Dan Quinn. You know, I've been defending this guy on Facebook a little bit because I know a lot of Falcons fans, and I live in the city of Atlanta, and a lot of these people want his head. I tried to bring him down to earth, saying this guy just got you to the Super Bowl a year ago. I mean, 2 years ago, you got back to the playoffs last year, and you were a play away from beating the eventual Super Bowl champs in the playoffs. And I tried to kind of defend him, try to give him the benefit of the doubt because of the injuries. However, the team has been injured for a while, and it's starting to be the end of that excuse. I mean, because at this point, you know who you got. These guys that are playing, they actually have to get better eventually. I mean, if they're on your team and you think they're good enough, you wanted to stay fast early in the year and not bring in anybody from the outside because you believed in who you had on the roster, you need to maximize the talent that you do have, whether it's beat up or not. There's plenty of injuries across the NFL. Injuries are part of the game. There's no longer an excuse. He's not making an excuse, however, the results aren't showing. And for a defensive coach who tends to talk about wanting to play fast and attack, having that mentality and having or flying around and hitting style of defense, he seemed to make some decisions yesterday against the Cowboys where he backed off and just played coverage and only rushed 3 guys, even though Vic Beasley was having a pretty decent game. And it kind of makes you scratch your head because you're supposed to be attacking, supposed to be fast, supposed to be flowing, supposed to be hitting, but you're rushing 3. You know your linebackers and secondary is beat up. Why would you try to maximize your coverage? Matt, go to your strengths. Rush the passer. Dak Prescott has not been a great quarterback under pressure this year, so why not continue to try to heat him up with the guys you have? These are some of the questions that some of the fans are asking. Not just me, however. That made me wonder about Dan Quinn going forward, and just something to keep in mind as the season progresses on. Even though the Falcons, the sun is setting to set on their playoff hopes. I know they kind of ran the shit when they got to 500, but these past couple weeks have been tough. And it doesn't get any easier because you have a short week traveling on Thanksgiving against the New Orleans Saints, your heated rival. You lost in overtime to them last time, but these guys seem to have gotten a lot better and your trajectory has gone down. So we'll be interested to see how they bounce back going forward on Thursday. On to the Panthers and Lions game. So this game ended up being pretty much of a shocker. I know the Panthers, they got embarrassed last week on Thursday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they definitely knew that we wanted to look back. However, the Panthers have struggled on the road all season with only one road victory, that big comeback victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. However, they haven't been very good, and they've been slow starting. It was a little bit different. They got started pretty fast this game, and they kind of hit a wall until the fourth quarter when they actually scored 2 touchdowns, and they had a chance to either tie or take the lead, and I think everybody knows by now what happened there. Yep, Riverboat Ron, he rolled the dice. He wanted to go for 2. Graham Gano, their kicker, who's probably one of the better kickers in the league, missed an extra point and a field goal earlier in the game, a couple chip shots, so maybe the confidence in the kicker was a little bit wavered. However, the defense has struggled a little bit stopping the run and a little bit on the pass on the drive before, so maybe he didn't have confidence in that defense. That's a lot of the questions that are looming around. However, his explanation was he wanted to go for the win on the road because he knew they struggled on the road. He didn't want to go into overtime. However, I humbly and wholeheartedly disagree. Of course, hindsight is 20/20, but let me put it to you like this. There's 1 minute left in the game, and if you do get the 2-point conversion, you're only at 1 point. If you're so unconfident in your defense that they couldn't get a stop, they may get a field goal anyway, and you still lose. However, if you take the field goal, I have confidence in Graham Gano. There's been plenty of times where he missed field goals in the game, where he's come back and made the game winner. He's been in the league for a long time. He's a vet. I believe he's one of the best kickers in the NFL, so he will be able to right that thing. Had they tied it up and gone to overtime, I don't care if they're on the road. They had a lot more momentum on that time. They had 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns, even though the Lions had not scored. So they pretty much had all the momentum on their side. Yes, you don't want to leave the fate of your team up in a coin flip. However, if you can't count on your defense in that scenario to get 1 stop and get you the ball back, what can you do there? So, especially when you're a defensive coach like Riverboat Ron, you need to figure out what you want to do. You need to have an identity. Right now, you're a defensive coach, but the defense's identity has not been great, you know? And you as a coach, you need to pick your identity too. You can't be Riverboat Ron sometimes and then be super conservative other times. We've seen you punt the ball in opponent's territory when the numbers show now that it's more useful to go for it on 4th down. And you did that early in your career. You kind of set a trend that way, but he tended to fall back to being more conservative. I'm not sure what was going on with Ron there, but it's kind of something else to pay attention to. I know I'm talking about coaches a lot in this video today, but that's been my storylines for these games. All right, and last but not least, let's talk about the Saints versus the Eagles game. So we all know, we saw the score 48-7 as the Saints blew out the defending Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, and they held Carson Wentz to 168. You got to give the defense credit. However, I got to take a moment to give Drew Brees his credit. I know a lot of people got pissed off at me because I was making a case for how valuable Alvin Kamara is, and I do stand by those statements. However, this game, Drew Brees was on. It was all about him. He spread the ball around. Of course, Alvin Kamara got his touchdown like he always does, and he had his 100 all-purpose yards. Mark Ingram got involved. Thomas got involved. Kurtwood got involved. And Trocon Smith, the rookie wide receiver, got involved himself. So it was a great all-around effort. Drew Brees was willing to deal in. However, his completion percentage did drop. However, he was the X factor in this game, and he couldn't be stopped. What this guy's putting together this year is an MVP caliber season. My only argument was that Alvin Kamara has been a lot more consistent from game to game compared to Brees. Brees has had some great games. He's also had some games where he hasn't been great, maybe 2 or 3 games that he hasn't been perfect. However, Alvin Kamara has pretty much brought it every game, whether it's outrunning, catching, blocking, scoring touchdowns. He's one of the top running backs in the league in touchdowns, and he's in the backup role / splitting carries role with another running back. So I thought that the X factor of him being there was huge and an integral part of Drew Brees' MVP resume, and it is. So, but this day I got to give Drew Brees credit. I will do that. I have to. Nothing but respect for this guy, but it's going to be a tight race. And I think Patrick Mahomes may run away with it. Who knows? Patrick Mahomes went crazy on Monday Night Football with 6 touchdowns, even though he had some costly turnovers, whether they were interception return for touchdowns or fumbles. So it was a tough sledding for him. But there's going to be a tight race going to come out to the finish. Everybody knows that Drew Brees has time on his side, that the fact that people might give him a ring, give him the trophy just because it may be one of his last chances. And he's been playing good for so long, and he has a lot of primetime games coming up. But we'll see what happens there in this race as it heats up. But that's all I have for the division. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button below, like I said before. Give the video a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments below what you thought was the biggest storyline of this week out of the NFC South between Jameis, Quinn, Rivera gambling, and Drew Brees' performance. So without further ado, I'm Aaron Duncan signing off for the Necessary Blunt Sports Talk. I'll see you next time. Peace.